What's up, guys? Nate here. We are in our week 4, our last week of our series called More to the Story. Man, it's been a crazy series, I guess, a little awkward, a little uncomfortable probably, but I don't know, for you guys, it's probably pretty normal, right? Just to talk about sex with friends. You probably have friends that already have had sex. You're probably in this weird stage of life, you're like, I kind of get it, kind of don't. But it's still important to us, and we're just going through this series and looking more into what does God say? What does God say, and how did He create sex for us to be, to have, and to see it in the best way possible? So, guys, we're in our week 4, and I had a little bit of thinking the other day. So, I was thinking about preparing for this message, and I was just sitting here, and I was like, man, I remember thinking back to high school for me. And it was a time of life, when a lot of people were starting to have sex, or they were starting to just realize more of what their bodies entailed and all this kind of weird stuff. Again, just discovering that. But I remember this one time. So in middle school, I'll go back to middle school to give you guys some context. But in middle school, first, one of my buddies, he had his first kiss. Then I had my first kiss. And then our other friend, he had his first kiss, right? And so, we're the trio, and it was just like high fives all around. We're like, whoa, we got our first kisses. Obviously, it was girls that we were dating at the time. They weren't random strangers. But going on into high school, so then the first guy that had his first kiss, he also had sex for the first time out of the 3 of us. And then all of a sudden, there was a lot of pressure. All of a sudden, I didn't realize that at the time. So the last friend to get his kiss, all of a sudden he's like, Nate, we got to do this in order. You got to have sex next, and then I'll have sex. And because that's just how the order went in middle school. That's how we're going to carry it into high school. I know, kind of weird. You're like, what kind of friendship did you have? But yeah, that was just how I guess it went. And that's how my friend perceived it. I never perceived it that way, and I didn't really care. And I was just like, dude, you do whatever, right? Never went that way, never went down that road, but it was just interesting because as I was leaning into this and thinking about it the other day, I was like, man, there's just something there that I didn't realize in the moment, and there was just a lot of pressure all of a sudden put on me. See, I think when we go into our culture, our world with our friends, and when we talk about sex and when we talk about these sexual desires and what culture says versus what church says, there's a lot of, I guess the word is expectations. There's a lot of expectations in how we're supposed to perceive about sex, to have it, not to have it, wait till marriage, or have it before marriage, just to make sure kind of thing. There's a lot of things that people say. It's either one extreme or the other, I would say. There's people that are like, hey, have it now, you're young, whatever. And then there's people, maybe parents that are like, no, stay away from sex. You got to not go too far. It'll lead to other things. You can't even think too far. You got to honor God by honoring your body and others' bodies. And again, not having sex till marriage. There's a lot of expectations just built around this word called sex and this desire that we have inwards. So in this series, how do we discern and how do we make decisions for our life when one person's saying one thing and another person's saying another? Again, anywhere on the spectrum of just sex. Either don't have it whatsoever kind of thing, save it, whatever, and then, which is, again, good things. I think we should definitely wait till marriage. But really, again, there's these expectations. I'm like, we don't get it. Why do I have to do that? So we're leaning into this series, and I want to ask you that question. How do we discern those things? How do we ask ourselves that question? Which one do we listen to? Well, my favorite place to go to is in the Bible. It is exactly what Jesus says and what God says through the Bible, and how He tells us what our actions we should take and how it can glorify God, but also glorify us and help us to understand the best way to look at this series about sex. So I want to start into one of a great book in the New Testament. There's 4 books in the New Testament that are at the beginning. They're called the Gospels. So these are by writers that either knew Jesus or heard direct stories from people that actually knew Jesus, so like a friend of a friend kind of thing. Like the grandparent, father heard from that, tells his son kind of thing. I don't know how to explain it. But really, the Gospels are about writers that knew Jesus personally, or they experienced him some way or another through another person. And these are quality type writings of Jesus's life, and they're actually very similar to each other. See, now there's one book called the Book of John, and he is actually one of Jesus's 12 disciples. And John, he's talking to these Pharisees, and he's talking to them and being like, he's trying to tell them about sheep and robbers and gates, and they struggle to understand it. Well, then Jesus lays it flat out for them. This is what he says in John 10:10. This is what Jesus says. He says, "The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I've come that they may have life and have it to the full." Did you catch that last word? He says to the full. Like, he's not saying like, I'm just trying to give you some bits and chunks of information. Like, he wants you to have life to the full. So Jesus, he wants us to have life, right? He's talking to them, but he's also talking to us. He wants us to have life, not just any life, but he wants it to the fullest extent, to have more, a better life, something more capable that we can see and show it is better for us and better for the way we live, and how he wants us to live in our life, in our relationships, and even in sex. What's weird is that many of us think that this is the opposite of what Jesus wants for us. We may be here and tempting to think it's like God's goal in life for us is just minus all the good stuff. No, he wants you, and he's telling the crowd, he's telling us, and he's telling the crowd that he's speaking to, that we couldn't be farther from the truth. He wants us to have it to the full. He wants us to know and understand what this life should be about and what he created it to be about. Again, guys, God created sex. I'm gonna lay it out there for you. God created sex. You probably never heard that before. If you have, did you realize that God wants you to have even sex to the full, to experience it in the best way possible? Not just what culture says it's about, what it's deemed okay and like, all right, it's just a one-time thing with one person. No, guys, he wants you to have it for the full with someone that you love and care about, that he loves and cares about just as much as he loves and cares about you. See, the truth is, guys, Jesus doesn't want more for your story later in life. Jesus wants more for your story now. And that's our bottom line for tonight. Jesus wants more for your story now. He wants you to live in the fullest with him, because that's how we do it. When we live in the fullest, it is only through Jesus that we see the fullness of life. So when you're feeling all this pressure from all different sides, these expectations that you have to meet, just know to begin living a life with Jesus promises, meaning paying attention to the messages that he talks about, that you're hearing and believing, including messages about sex. Jesus wants you to discern those different factors of what culture and other people say versus what he says and what he knows is true, because again, he's fully God, fully man. He knows what it's like to walk in flesh, but he also is the one who created sex and he created us. So pay attention to what Jesus says to you and what you hear from him. This is what also he says in John 10:27. He says this, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." Isn't that crazy? So when we become part of this relationship with Jesus, we first know the fullness of life. We understand like, man, this guy knows more than me because he created life. But he also says, my sheep, those that follow me, know what I say. So when we come into a relationship with Jesus, we can hear his voice. We can understand what's his truth, what he says is true, versus what culture thinks is true. So guys, we can live life with Jesus. The people who belong to Jesus listen to his voice. They follow him because he knows better than anyone and he can be trusted. I realized figuring out exactly what following Jesus looks like for your specific dating life and your specific decisions that are made. When you aren't sure what it looks like to follow Jesus in this area or any other, you can have people around you, and you will have people around you in your small groups, your small group leader, people that want to pay attention and listen to you and dive into those tough questions that you don't know. It's okay to not know the whole Bible. I don't know everything, right? It might seem like it, I'm teaching on this, but again, I don't know everything. But where we start is through the Bible and understand, what did God create this for and how did he intend this to be? So guys, as you go throughout this week and onward, because again, this is our last week, think about it. What was sex purpose? How did God create it? Because he created it to the fullest. He created you to live it to the fullest. Not just some cheap thing culture kind of gives you. Something that's momentary, that pleases the soul in the moment. Nothing's eternal until you meet Jesus. Jesus is the one that makes it eternal and long lasting. So have a great rest of your week, guys. Again, listen to Jesus, hear his voice. You can be a part of his sheep.
Thank you so much for watching our Orchard Students Ministry YouTube channel. But don't stop there. Hit the subscribe and like button so you don't miss any of our content. And also share this with any of your friends and family. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date with upcoming message series and events. Thank you again for watching, and God bless you.